personal injury lawyer who is on the set today to answer your phone calls. If you want to dial in at 276-2118, Karl will answer your questions live on the air. We also have some great emails in the stack, but first we should probably get to the news of the day. Becca just thought of this.
Big news.
One thing I do want to point out before we get started, when I saw my logo on the screen, I have been getting a lot of phone calls, people asking me if I've misspelled Colonel. It does not have two L's on it. It is an exclamation point. So
Count
all
on
those
the
people
Colonel,
out there
exclamation
thinking
point.
that there are two L's, I've had a bunch of phone calls, people asking me, you spelled Colonel wrong in your logo.
There it is.
Oh, it's definitely an
It is an
exclamation
exclamation
point.
point.
And that's because Karl has been a colonel for a great portion of his life.
So I do know how to spell it.
Absolutely.
So I do know how to spell it.
All right.
It's
Clarification.
an exclamation point.
Okay, so the news of the day. Yesterday, an explosion took place at Carbide.
Yes.
It has had 2 confirmed fatalities up to this moment, I
think so.
and a number of injuries. These things would fall under personal injury law, I imagine. Do you think?
Well, there's could be several different aspects. Of course, we don't know what caused the explosion, but the people working there would be covered under workers' compensation laws.
Okay.
So if you're an employee at a plant like that, and something happens, you get injured or killed, then you do have remedies under the workers' compensation. The other aspect, let's say that it expands beyond the plant and injures someone outside into the neighborhood, then those people would have a claim against the plant as more of a negligence claim, personal injury claim.
Okay, so what about the folks, I mean, last night everybody was talking on the news about roll up your windows in your cars.
Yeah, stay inside.
Close your windows if you're within a mile of the plant. Those are all things that could fall under personal injury if health problems developed as a result of it, or how do we determine that, Karl?
Well, certainly, and sometimes that's one of the complications with toxic exposures. Can be very difficult to prove because it does take such medical experts to be able to link this problem with with this condition. So it can be very complicated. But yes, if you're exposed to a chemical as a result of that, and you become ill, then yes, that could be a negligence claim.
Amazing.
Wow, this kind of reminds me of the movie Erin Brockovich.
Yes.
And with the water system, and they have to prove all these people got sick and that kind of thing. So
Incredible.
I think this is the only scratch
Tremendous
on the surface.
amount of work, right? That would be necessary to prove a claim like that, and that kind of thing could stretch out in the courts for years.
Well, and there have been some situations where I've had people call me with some sort of exposure, but fortunately it wasn't anything that caused long-term damage. And so there are some, like for example in mold in apartment buildings, once you're removed from that, then your symptoms clear up and you're okay. So, that's one of the questions. And so, because then people ask me, well, do I have a claim? Well, technically yes, but what are your damages if you're removed from that exposure and there's no permanent injury? Yes, they were wrong, but there may not be a significant claim there.
Then you've got the opposite, where you've got like asbestos and black lung disease, which are lifelong, usually things that come from a career in the mines or working with asbestos products and things like that, right?
Oh yeah, those can be deadly, obviously.
If we wanted to talk to Karl about anything regarding personal injury, medical malpractice, motor vehicle accidents, Social Security law, and workers' compensation, you can do so if you're in Indiana or in Kentucky.
Yeah, we practice both sides of the river.
That's a very important thing because who knows, if you get into a car accident in Indiana, you want somebody who practices in both states, especially if you live over here.
And that's true, and that's one of the things to talk to when you think about getting an attorney, making sure that they're licensed in the state where your injury occurred.
Yeah.
All right, Karl, summer's coming up. People are traveling from different states, like Tara was just mentioning. What are a few things that you can just say, slow down on the interstates, be careful? I mean, because there's a lot of complications that go with things outside of the state.
Oh, absolutely. Just as we always hear about being cautious on the road, looking out for the other guy. I mean, you might be a very safe driver, but the other person on the road may not be. And so sometimes it's best just to back off and let them have the road and stay out of the way. You can be right, or you can be hurt.
My dad used to say, if you're sitting beside somebody, you should be able to see the rear wheels of the vehicle in front of you clearly over your hood, or you can be pushed into that car if somebody hits you from behind a lot more easily.
That's true. I actually saw a truck at a stoplight the other day, and it had a bumper sticker that said, "If you can see my tires,
Yep.
you're a safe driver."
Yes. Okay, so Daddy, thank you. That was right.
That's good to know.
Let's go ahead and check on this email, Carl, because I'm interested in what Tom in Louisville says. We're talking about vacation driving.
Right.
My family was driving home from vacation in South Carolina. I was pulled over for speeding. Oh. Within a week, I started receiving letters in the mail from attorneys in that state wanting to represent me. Isn't that interesting? I'd like to contest it since I was going with the flow of traffic, but I obviously can't drive all the way back to appear in court. Is getting a lawyer there something I should look into, or should I just pay it and move on? Guess the question is, how many points are going to show up on your license as a result of that ticket, right?
Well, it's not always the points. The insurance companies don't just look at the points. They look at the fact that you had a violation.
Yeah.
So certainly I would hire a local attorney, especially if it's something that you don't feel was just, or even if it was legitimate. I mean, the fact that you're with the flow of traffic does not excuse you from speeding.
Right.
So that is something common that a lot of people want to say. Well, I was just going with the flow of traffic, but so just because you got stopped and other people didn't doesn't excuse you. But certainly, I would hire an attorney, in that area, because they may be able to get it amended down to something else. Perhaps a lesser charge depending on the speed. Or sometimes courts have a pretrial diversion program. Even if you were guilty, they may have a pretrial diversion where you can go to driving school or pay a separate fine.
I wonder if you could go to driving school in your own state, or if they'd make you come back there.
It depends. I mean, you don't know until you talk to someone there.
Right.
So definitely, I would talk to a local attorney where you got the ticket.
Well, I had an accident out of state, and remember that I went to the Kentucky State Fair, and they looked up my driver's license in that booth.
Right.
And I had, too many points. I was like, I've never had a violation. And all of a sudden, I realized it was the accident that caused the problem. And I did
Well,
have
you
to
had to
hire
have
a local
had a violation.
attorney. Yeah, well, I did, but I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
So I had to hire a local attorney to
Well,
get it fixed.
I got to rat somebody out upstairs in the
Uh-oh.
WBK office. They got pulled over.
Was
and
this confession day on the ticket?
Yes. Well, not me. Not
We
me.
feel like we have to tell you
Our
everything, Carl.
General manager upstairs said,
It's just
I got
between us and
Right.
thousands of
No.
people on there.
No big deal. He said he got pulled over and he tried to explain, what was going on with the officer. The officer just said, give me your license and registration. And I said, well, were you speeding? And he said, well, yeah, but no, you were speeding.
He was
And
on his
he's
way to the
safe.
hospital to have a baby. He was the first male to ever have a baby.
Don't think so.
That was the story, and he's sticking to it. So Karl Truman is available for your consultations. All you have to do is call the number that's on your screen or check trumanlaw.com, and he will be happy to share his legal expertise with you in all areas of practice, from medical to motor vehicle to personal injury to Social Security and workers' compensation.
But I
Carl,
don't handle speeding tickets.
No speeding tickets.
So.
don't call Carl if you have a speeding ticket. If you get
Just
injured in the
don't
course of
speed.
getting a ticket, that's probably a different story.
Now, if you get injured when somebody else, because of somebody else speeding,
And
Okay.
don't speed. That's the key right there.
Karl Truman, personal injury lawyer. Count on the Colonel.